welcome to the latest episode of 5v4 Introduces. I'm absolutely delighted to have Alcatraz Jaz as my guest this week. It is amazing to meet you.
Yes, sorry. There was a motorcycle going down my road. Rude.
Don't worry about that.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, thank you for joining me. It's amazing to get so many new people on. I'm kind of always a little bit like, do I ask? Do I not?
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit about kind of how this came about as well, because I was really kind of like, ooh, did I push too far? But
No, absolutely not.
So I thought what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit about you, and then we'll explain kind of how this came about, and then we'll get into kind of the real nitty-gritty of the conversation.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know you, where are you from?
So that's a complicated question as well, though, because I'm from.
Let's get straight into it off the bat.
I'm a bit of everywhere. I was actually born in England and I stayed there until I was about 7.
Really?
Yeah, I lost my accent long ago, and it makes me so sad that I lost it, because I totally would love to have it right now, but I don't. So I just sound generally American. But I was born in England around the Cambridge area. And my family's actually still there. My dad was in the Air Force, so we traveled a lot. He met my mom in England, and that's how I came to be. And then when I was 7, we moved to Maryland, and that was fun. We lived on a military base in the middle of all the big cities in Maryland. There's Baltimore, Annapolis, and Washington, D.C., of course. So I got to grow up on military bases and be around all that hush-hush secret stuff. And then we finally moved to Florida, which is where I am now, when I was about 12. My dad wanted to retire here. For those that don't know, when you're in the military, at least the American military, if you're doing a career, you go in for 20 years. And then you retire and you get like benefits and stuff from the military and all that. Well, my dad had been in it for 24 years, and he was like, there's not much I can do, so let's just go retire where I was born. So he retired here in Florida, and I'm still here.
Nice.
That's where I live. I live on the Panhandle, which is debatably not what most people think of when they think of Florida. They think of like Orlando and Miami, but it's still part of Florida. It's a very laid back part of it. So that's where I am currently, and where I'm from. Very long-winded story of where I'm from.
I know, but it makes it so much more interesting, though, isn't it? When you can instantly throw somebody with, well, I'm actually from here, and they would have no clue.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember much about that time in England?
Yeah, it was like my childhood. It was me growing up, being surrounded by my family, because my mom's side is completely British. She born and raised in the Cambridge area, didn't get very far past that. And so I had my grandparents, and then I have an aunt and a couple uncles, and we still go and visit them when we can, because it's expensive, obviously, to go from Florida to England. But I remember all the different sweets and all the snacks. And I went to school. In England, you start school at 4, so that's when I started school. So it's still home for me. I have like multiple homes. If that makes any sense.
There's nothing wrong with that. How was it when you moving from England? That's such a big move. Like I'm just thinking, because my little girl is 7 now, and if I uprooted everything to go to a completely different country, she'd enjoy it for a few weeks, and then she'd be like, right, can we go home now and see my friends?
Yeah, no, it was hard. A 7-year-old moving to a completely different country is hard. Of course, I left all of my friends. I was also a very shy kid. So it was very hard for me to open up to anybody ever. So the first like year in Maryland was very lonely for me because I just didn't know how to make friends. And then one of the main reasons why I lost my accent is because the kids made fun of me for having a British accent. Like they just made fun of me for it all the time. So I just didn't talk. Like I legitimately had a kid come up to me and ask me if I could even talk. He was like, "Are you mute?" It's like, "No, I can talk."
Wow.
He was like, I went on like a no talking. Yeah, I was like on a no talking strike for like a little bit. But that kid turned out to be like one of my friends growing up, so that was fun. So yeah, it was crazy because everything changes. I left all my friends. Like all of the snacks I knew weren't weren't available. It was definitely a change, but there's something to say though about moving to another country when you are like in the military. The families on the base were so nice and so welcoming.
Yeah.
So I had that. So that was nice. Yeah, it was weird and it was strange. And then I now just have my broadly American accent that doesn't really place me anywhere. You can thank Maryland for that.
But you've got such a sort of a colorful backstory though, so it makes up for it.
Yeah. Yes, that's I'm very amazing. Happy it makes up for it.
So what were your interests as a child, kind of in England and then when you moved to Maryland?
I liked exploring a lot. You probably wouldn't have guessed that. I was outside a lot as a child. I went on like adventures, I guess. Like we would go explore little forests or little woods that were around. In England at my school, we had a giant field to play in like during recess or whatever during our breaks. And there's like a little grove in the back, and we used to go explore it every now and then and pick like blackberries and just be like wilderness children. So that's what I did. I explored a lot. I had my bike all the time and I was riding my bike everywhere. And then probably when I was around 8, I started to take interest in video games. And then that's when I started playing video games because my dad was actually a big gamer, which is hilarious. You got this military guy who's just like, playing video games all the time. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I think we had like the Dreamcast and then we had the PlayStation 1. And the PlayStation 1 was the one where I first started playing all the time. And then that just kind of took over my hobbies. Like I read a lot. I was a giant nerd as a child, just like now. I read a lot and I played a lot of video games. And that's what I did.
Amazing. And I'm guessing a lot of those kind of will carry on now. And the exploring thing, is that something that you're keen to pass on because you're a mom now as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. He is 9 months old. And it's been quite the journey. I never thought I'd be a mom. So becoming a mom was exciting and terrifying. And it's still terrifying because now like his whole life is in my hands and it's up to me to make sure he's safe. But it's been fun, and I'm hoping that I can give that like exploring kind of mindset to him growing up, because my husband he was like in Boy Scouts and did all of the exploring too as a kid. So we're hoping to like take him out. The cool thing about America is there's a ton of like outdoorsy stuff you can do. Because there's like mountains and then forest and then like desert. It's everything. We can get anything over here. So we're hoping to really take him out and go camping and do all the fun stuff. And hopefully he can also have that exploring attitude. And then also hopefully he'll like video games. We'll see. I don't know.
I love it. You guys have the weather as well, which kind of benefits the being outside and exploring and things. I mean, a couple of weeks ago we had a heat wave and snow in the same week. It's a bit more unpredictable here. But that said, my little girl is kind of forever out in the street on her bike and things like that. Like, I got a text earlier from my mom saying that she thought I was amazing because I pumped her bike tire up yesterday. So she thinks I can fix everything. So now she's volunteering my services. But yeah,
that's great. I love it. She's just like, Dad can do it. He can do anything.
Yeah, my dad can fix that. I'm like, I really can't. So nowadays, obviously having a 9-month-old is going to take a lot of your time. What else do you spend your time doing, kind of away from Twitch?
Yeah, away from Twitch, a lot of my time I spend trying to relax, which is so hard to do as like an adult, which is so funny that that's like the hardest thing to do because there's always something to do.
Especially with a 9-month-old.
Yeah, there's always something to do. Like the house needs to be cleaned, all of that fun stuff. But I've been getting back into reading, which is lovely. I also cross stitch. That is something that I love to do. I had a giveaway.
Nice.
That I still need to send out. I finished them. I just haven't sent them out yet. But like, this is one thing. It's from Doctor Who.
That's amazing.
So I made him.
That's fantastic.
Cute. I've been doing that. I like to refer to myself as an 80-year-old lady because of things I do. I can knit really well as well. I garden. I have a giant garden.
That's brilliant.
And I also love to cook. So that's something that I've been trying to do more. Again, like if you think of anything an 80-year-old like Nan would do, that's me. 100% me.
So we're not like to find you sort of in bars and clubs kind of falling out the doors at the last minute.
No, I've actually never been like that. I've always been, my mom's called me like an old soul. Like I've always been a really old soul. That's just who I've been, even as a teenager. Yeah. I had like 2 years of sneaking out and trying to party. And then after that, I was like, this isn't what I want to do. So I kind of just stopped and I don't know, became like the 80-year-old lady because it
just became you. That's brilliant.
I found that I liked more chill activities, I guess you could say. Like I don't need it to be like hyped up all the time. That's not good for me for one, but it's also just, I don't know, you get such reward for making things and for growing things because it's like, I did a thing and I'm here's the thing I did. And I think that's why I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. Like sort of having that creative side. I'm not the most creative person, but I get the whole, this is the output of my efforts.
Yes.
Whereas I guess if you're out every weekend, it's like, here's my hangover.
Right. Here's my bill from all the drinks I drank.
Yeah. Amazing. So being a parent and obviously with him being 9 months old, what are the things that you're most excited about as he grows up?
Oh, I'm just excited to see the person he's going to be, you know, like I'm very much, I want him to explore. I want him to figure out who he is. I don't want him to like, I don't know, be confined to like the standards of society of what he should do and what he shouldn't do. Like if he wants to play sports, great, let him play sports. But if he also wants to like dress up and have fun, then let him do it. Like I want to be a very open-minded parent. I want, if he enjoys something, then I want to support him in that enjoyment. And that comes from my parents. My parents never told me I couldn't do anything. They always said that I could definitely do anything I wanted to, as long as I put the work in. So I want that same mindset for my kid as well. Like, I'm never going to tell him, no, you can't do that. That's dumb. No, let's see what it takes to get it done. And let's try and figure it out. I'm excited to see what he's going to like and what he's going to enjoy and what type of person he's going to be. I think that's the most exciting thing for me. And I can't wait to be there to support him in all of his endeavors. Because if he's anything like me, it's going to be a lot of different things. I went through many thoughts of what I wanted to do with my life. I still don't quite know, but I'm just like along for the ride at this point, I think.
As long as you're enjoying it, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
I totally understand where you're coming from with the letting them explore their own personalities and things like that. Like, one thing I've always been keen to tell my kids is that there's no real such thing as weird. It's just the stuff that makes you interesting, and you don't have to do the same things as everybody else. Like, I've got a 9-year-old boy who was massively, up until recently when he discovered Minecraft, but was hugely into bird watching. And I'm like, I have no clue.
That's cool, though.
This is my first kind of venture into bird watching, but then it was like, okay, well, tell me what this bird is. Let's get some binoculars and like let's just go for it. Let's go all in, and we'll see where we end up. And just stressing them, like, that's the stuff that makes you different to everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good thing. You don't have to be the same as everybody else.
Yeah.
Amazing. So you recently hit a bit of a milestone on Twitch.
Yeah.
You hit 500 followers. Congratulations.
Yeah, that was crazy. I didn't expect it. It happened while I was on my break. So I was confused. I was like, hold on, why? But I'm happy about it. I never thought I would get here. I started streaming, I don't know, in December as like a fun thing for me to have, like a time for me, you know, like not having to worry about my husband or my son. Like, this is me. This is what I like to do. And having 500 followers, like, that's absolutely insane. I never thought anyone would watch me or let alone have 500 people want to click the follow button. Like, that's crazy.
It's funny when you start out and it's like, I just need to get to 50. How can I get to 50? And then now sitting here like 500, and we've built these relationships with people that like come in and sit and I'll have a chat while you play a video game and stuff. It's so strange from that starting point.
It is, but it's so nice. Like, I've met the most amazing people through streaming. Like, I never would have met them otherwise because they are in different parts of the world or different parts of the country. And it's been so great making those friendships. I that's something I didn't think would come out of this, honestly. I feel like I'm the most boring person in the world. So like having people that keep coming back to my streams to talk to me or to just hang out and lurk, like I never thought that would happen. So
anything but boring.
Like, but that's just who I thought I was. So when I started, I was like, I'll have like my husband watching me and maybe like 2 people. But it's been a fun and crazy ride for sure. And it's been great.
Yeah, it's tough when you're naturally a shy person. Like, I'm exactly the same, and I'll sit there and I'll be like, who's going to watch this? And I just have to kind of convince myself that, again, a bit like I'm trying to teach the kids, like, be yourself because you're the best version of you. And naturally, and I've said this on a few episodes actually, but people will naturally gravitate to personalities that they can relate to and have things in common with. So you don't have to be loud and like all action and stuff like that. And if you want to cross stitch on stream, that's cool. Like there's so many people doing like arts and crafts on stream and stuff like that. And naturally people will that have those interests will find you and hang out and stuff. So but that's amazing. And you mentioned it you just had a little break, but how was that first stream back after the break?
Oh, it was last night, and it was at a time I normally don't stream. It was very late for, well, it's not, it wasn't even that, it's late for me because like I said, I'm an 80-year-old lady. I go to bed early. I'm an early riser. Like I wake up early for no reason. But it was like 10 o'clock my time, and I did it for about 2 hours. It was great. People actually showed up, which I didn't expect. I was like, I'll just stream randomly. I had the energy to do it yesterday, so I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And my favorite game of all time just got released and remastered, which is Mass Effect. So I wanted to play it, and I wanted to share my excitement for it on stream. I almost cried a couple times because of how happy I was to be playing Mass Effect because it's such a it's such a like a nostalgia for me, I guess. When I first started playing Mass Effect, my husband and I had just started dating, and that was 10 years ago.
Wow.
And he was like, you should check out this game because the third one's coming out soon. And I was like, okay, well then let me try it. And then I fell in love with it, and it became our first thing, I guess.
Yeah.
That wasn't just like a, because Mass Effect was popular, but it wasn't like super, super popular, like not like Call of Duty or League of Legends or any of those big games, you know? So it was like our little thing that we got to talk to about together. And it was such a great time in my life because I was 17 or 18 and I just graduated high school. I was starting college. I was starting to find myself, and that game had made such a big impact on me. And it's so funny how games can do that to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, playing it last night was so much fun, and I'm gonna keep playing it today, probably off stream. But it was great getting all the support from everyone, and I can't wait to get back into streaming more regularly.
Brilliant. I'm so glad it went so well. Now, this kind of whole conversation came about because you were very open about the reasons that you'd been taking a break from Twitch, and wanted to be as open as you could about kind of mental health and things like that. And this is what I alluded to at the start, because I instantly replied saying, if you want to be really open, so come on, we'll have a conversation about it. And then kind of, I literally didn't even think about the reply. I thought, right, let's just do it. And then about an hour later, I'm like, I hope she doesn't think I was being really rude and kind of like, oh, someone's got issues, let's get them on. Like, it totally wasn't like that. But it was more from a place of finding somebody that wants to be really open, and kind of, there'll be so many people that I dare say will feel similar or have felt similar. So I really do appreciate you kind of taking it as how it was intended.
Yeah.
But what prompted the break?
Yeah, so a lot of things kind of prompted the break. Twitch is very great and awesome, but it can get really overwhelming really fast at the same time.
Yeah.
Especially if you start, there's like the people that really hound on their numbers, I guess, when it comes to Twitch. And that's great for some people. Some people, it's a great motivator. Like it makes them push and it makes them keep going. But for me, and I'm sure a lot of other people, it's not really a good motivator to see like your friends over there averaging like 30 viewers. And then you're over there with like 10 and you're like, oh, well, maybe I'm not doing that great. Even though I definitely am improving from my own thing. It's very overwhelming and it weighs down on you a lot. And that kind of weighed down on me a little bit. I got kind of into that mindset of I have to be better instead of enjoying it anymore. And it's super easy to get into that mindset. And I don't ever want anyone to feel bad about getting into that mindset if it makes them feel bad, because so many of us slip into it.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get out of it. So there was that part of it. Also, I've struggled with mental health issues since I can remember. I didn't have a name for it, of course. And it's just been a struggle. When I was 14 years old, I had a suicide attempt. And that is when it all kind of like, oh, it makes sense. I was depressed. I had anxiety, but like a 14-year-old doesn't get taken seriously with those things. They're just like, oh, you're a kid. You don't understand.
Yeah.
There's nothing for you to worry about. Why are you worrying about things? And that's not how that works.
No.
That's not how mental health or mental illness works.
No.
You can't just be like, never mind. Okay, you're right. I shouldn't worry about it.
Okay, I'll turn it off now.
Let me turn that off real quick. Thanks for reminding me. But all of it kind of compiled to my suicide attempt at 14. And that's when I got some traction. And that's when people started to be like, oh, wait, hold on. maybe there is something wrong and she isn't just being a teenager or whatever they tried to shove me under the rug about. And so I've been really struggling with mental health since then. That's like my pinnacle point, I guess. Like that's when I got diagnosed. Recently I found out I was misdiagnosed. That's when I got my first diagnosis of having major depressive disorder and generalized anxiety disorder, which are two very common things also. Super common. And since that point, I've been trying to work on myself. For a little bit in high school, I had an eating disorder, which is also another mental illness. And I was struggling with that. But I overcame that eating disorder, which was great. I had it was borderline anorexia. I wasn't eating. I didn't want to eat. I had no wanting to eat because I didn't want to get fat. I didn't want to be made fun of. I got made fun of a lot in middle school for being like the chunky girl. And it really just like it compiles and it manifests its way in like in a different way for everyone. For me, it was my mental health plummeted terribly.
Understandably as well.
It was a struggle. And then around 18 or 19, I decided I didn't want to be quiet about it anymore. Like I did not want to keep suffering in silence because it doesn't help. Because then I just feel like I'm alone. And when I was 18 or 19, it still wasn't like a common thing to talk about. So I'm 27 now. So, and a lot has changed in the past 10 years. So much has changed, especially when it comes around mental health and all of that. People started being more open in the past 10 years about it. But when I first started being open about it, no one was talking about it because why would you? Oh, no, you're the black sheep in your family. You're the one that would have been locked away in an asylum, you know, back when that was the way that they treated mental illness.
There was a big lack of understanding, wasn't there? Kind of up until fairly recently. And now, literally, as we speak, we're in Mental Health Awareness Week.
Right. It's been so great seeing that growth. And so I started talking about it when I was 20 or so. But when I was 25, I took a big leap and I did kind of like a TED Talk thing. The company I was working for at the time gathered a bunch of people in the area to do like a TED Talk, but like for our little area. And I decided that I was going to talk in front of 200 people about my struggles with mental health and mental illness. It was terrifying because I can
imagine
that was the first time I had really been open with like strangers, you know, like I started to be more open with my friends and my family about things when I was like 19 or 20 and being like, no, I can't do that because my mental health battery is drained. Like if I do that, I'm pushing myself too far. I don't want to push myself right now. And being more open about it and why you don't want to do things, I think helps a lot as well. But I think that's why I have some friendships now that have lasted so long because I was straight up open with them. They were like, let's go out. And I'm like, no, I can't. I'm going to have a panic attack if we go out. So I'm not doing it. And then they'd be like, oh, okay. Well, then how about we just hang out or do something more low key? And then that's what we did. But 25, 200 people, strangers mostly. I stood up and gave a 15-minute talk about how to take care of your mental health, about my struggle with depression and anxiety and how that affects me in my professional life as well. Because it doesn't go away in my day job. It's still there. And it's also
good days and bad days, right?
Yeah, it ebb and flows. Sometimes I'm a rock star, sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm just kind of floating and maintaining. And that's perfectly okay. I don't have to shoot it out of the park every single day all the time. I would get burnt out really easy. Fast forward to about 2 months ago, I got re-diagnosed with bipolar disorder, bipolar 1 to be specific. There's 3 types of bipolar disorder. I have 1, which is usually the more serious of the bunch. Bipolar disorder 2 is similar, but a little bit more mild, not as severe. And then there's a third one. I can't remember the name of it, but it's what they give the name to children that also have bipolar tendencies. Bipolar disorder presents itself in different ways with children, which is why it's like its own group.
A separate thing. Yeah.
It's a separate thing because children display mental illness and things like that in a completely different way than an adult would. So I have bipolar disorder 1. I got that diagnosis about 2 months ago. And at first I was like, okay, this is fine. This is just another thing I need to tackle. But it quickly became very overwhelming. Because bipolar is not something that's talked about still, even now. People, when it's portrayed in like the media, it's always like the crazy person.
Yeah,
the ones
it has
like
such an extreme stigma attached at times, doesn't it?
It does. And so like a lot of people don't want to talk about it because they don't want to be seen as like the crazy person. But I said, I don't know. Well, if that's what I need to do and that's who I am, I need to figure it out. Bipolar is treated a little differently than depression and anxiety because what bipolar 1 disorder is, it's of course different moods. So that's basically what bipolar is. There's 2 poles. There's your manic side, which is someone that's usually like very energetic, gets everything done.
Yeah.
Crazy energy, makes impulsive decisions, doesn't think things through, and that sort of thing. And for me, I thought that's just how people were normally. Like I thought that was just how it was. And everyone was kind of like that. And then the other pole of bipolar is depression.
Yeah.
And I've been really struggling with depression since having my son, which is a normal thing and something that's also not talked about a lot, which is postpartum depression. Because everyone was like, oh, you have a baby, why are you upset? Why are you sad? And that's not exactly what it is. So I've been struggling with that a lot. And it's a lot. So with bipolar, it goes back and forth between those two. I have very few times where I feel normal, I guess, where I'm not depressed, but I'm not running around doing a million things for no reason whatsoever. It happens, but it's very far and in between for me. And again, I thought like manic episodes, I was just better. Like my depression was gone. This is great, amazing. But it turns out that's not at all what it should be. I should have more of like that normalcy. And so I started the journey of getting help for bipolar, which is different because it needs to be treated with medication most of the time because of how drastic the mood changes are. And it can be exhausting. I'm sure some people could see someone that goes from being very depressed to being all over the place as like, oh, look, they're better. But that swing of that pendulum is so exhausting because you're just getting ripped out of being in like a dark place where you're sad or you might be numb or you're crying. You don't have energy to do anything. It's very hard to take care of yourself. Like this is the first time my hair hasn't been a giant knotted mess in like a month, and I'm very proud of myself.
It looks great.
Thank you. I'm very proud of myself. But then swinging to having all the energy, that's exhausting. And then it's even more exhausting and kind of disheartening to go from having all the energy to having none. Like in the matter of like a day. It's hard to explain to someone. I know it's like having the rug pulled out underneath you. You're like, oh, I feel better. This is great. And then out of nowhere, it's just like, nope, back to being depressed. Some people with bipolar, their episodes in between them are more like predictable, and they can be like, okay, this is what's going to happen next. I can prepare myself in some way. Mine tend to be a little bit more unpredictable. I don't quite know when I'm going to be super depressed, and I don't quite know when I'm about to be jumping off of the walls. And it's exhausting having to constantly try and gauge where I am. Now that I see the pattern, and I got recognized by my therapist who brought it up and was like, hey, so have you thought about going to a psychiatrist and getting a bipolar sort of like test sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's like a questionnaire and you just kind of answer it. And then you get officially diagnosed by a psychiatrist in the US. That's how that works. Because my therapist is not a psychiatrist. Those are two different things. Your therapist tries to help you by giving you tools like, oh, you don't want to cook? Well, fine. We'll buy like frozen food and then heat it up because you need to eat. Like, I like to call my therapist like my common sense person. Like, like, because when you're really in a depressive episode, you feel like you're a terrible person for not being able to cook and clean and do laundry and do all the things that like a normal person can do. So my common sense guide is like, well, if you don't feel like cooking, then make sure you have things that you can just pop in the microwave real quick, or that you can grab out of the fridge, or get protein shakes because you can just grab them and drink it, and then you don't even have to eat. It's great. But then on the psychiatrist, they treat more of like medical. So they will prescribe prescriptions that you need. They'll try and get you on the right balance of medication to get you to normalcy. But you still, most of the time, still need a therapist as well to be your common sense guy. You shouldn't be feeling like this. Please don't think it's normal. So let's try to get you to where you feel better.
No, a lot of that makes sense. I know I've known a few people that have had or have bipolar, and they explain kind of it's literally what it says on the tin, like one extreme to the other. But for anybody that's watching or listening that's starting to kind of think a bit more about their mental health and maybe not feeling 100%, when you look back, what were the kind of the signs that you noticed in the beginning that something wasn't right?
There was a lot. It's so easy as a person to just like shove things under the rug, like that's just me. I just need to be better. For me, everybody
feels like this.
Yeah, I'm like an overachiever, which makes it 100 times worse, I feel like, because I want to do all the things. Like I genuinely want to do everything that I'm supposed to do. Like I should be able to clean the house and cook dinner and do all the things, but I can't. And so, and when I say I can't, like I don't have the energy to do it. Like absolutely someone from the outside could be like, you can totally go do those dishes, Jasmine. Why aren't you doing it? But I don't have the energy. I remember there's a thing my therapist told me. I can't remember exactly. It's the spoon theory, I think it's called. It is a kind of a way of thinking about mental illness and chronic illnesses, because there's this chronic illnesses, of course, could be a physical illness where you physically don't have the energy or like anything to do anything. Mental illness is also very similar to chronic illnesses in that way, that you don't have that energy sometimes to do anything. And it's just how it is. The spoon theory is saying, like, let's say you have 10 spoons, and those 10 spoons are activities that you have to do. So like taking a shower, brushing your teeth, cleaning the house, all of that fun stuff. Each activity takes a spoon. And then like by the end of the day, you might not have any spoons to do anything. So then you end up having to just like go to bed or not do anything and feel terrible.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to figure out what things you can do to conserve your energy so you can function. And that's a great way to think about it. So I have 10 spoons for the day. Do I want to spend that spoon cutting up vegetables and trying to cook, or do I want to play with my son? I'd rather play with my son. So let's find a way where I can make the cooking be easier so it doesn't take as much energy out of me.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a great way to think about it. It's like a give and trade. Sometimes I can do all the things. More than likely, I'm in a manic phase and I probably should not be doing all the things. But that's just how it is. And for someone that's an overachiever, you kind of look at it as like a failure. Like I failed myself, like I didn't, like I could have done it. Why didn't I do it? And then that just leads you into a cycle of just feeling terrible about yourself, because that's the thing. I think people need to recognize that if you are feeling that way about things and you cannot get the energy to do it, don't feel bad. It's so easy to say not to feel bad, but try your hardest not to feel bad. And if you are struggling to just kind of like exist as a human and take care of yourself, you probably do need to get help at some point. And there's a ton of resources out there now that weren't there not even like 10 years ago to try and get help, because it can be very hard, and it can be scary to get help, because for me it felt like I was giving up. If that made any sense. Like, no, me reaching out for help felt like I was giving up, but it wasn't. And looking back on it is the biggest step. The biggest step is recognizing you need help and then going and trying to find it. And then if you're struggling to get help, because it's exhausting trying to find help. For a very long time, I didn't want to, because of how much effort it does take. You got to search online, try and find someone. In America, at least, you have to find someone that takes your insurance, because if you don't find someone that will take your insurance, it's very expensive to go to a psychiatrist, because they're charging like upwards of like $500 for a single appointment. So like there's financial things that make it hard. So it's very important to find something that's like it's in your network in America. That's how they phrase it, if it's in your insurance. So the best thing that I found, and my therapist told me, was that if you know what insurance you have, you can actually go to their website and they'll list out providers near you that can help you. They'll list out like therapists and psychiatrists that could possibly help you. And also a good first place to get help is to go to your primary care doctor. So like the person you go for checkups and things like that. You can absolutely bring up mental health issues with your primary care doctor, and they will take it seriously. It's a very easy way to do it if you don't know where to start. Like, you have that doctor you go to anyway. Be open with them. If they don't want to be open about it, find a different fucking doctor, because that's not the person you need to help. But there's going to be someone out there that
they'll be able to help.
Yeah, the likelihood is they're 100% there to help. They'll either help you by getting you on some milder meds, or they'll help you by finding a list of therapists or psychiatrists in your area that you can go to. It makes it a lot easier instead of trying to do it yourself. I'm a person that tries to do everything myself. And I feel like that's been my downfall sometimes. So definitely reaching out to someone like that is a big help. Or even just like your partner or your friends, they might have more energy to help you. Like, just the people that care about you and legitimately care about you will love you no matter what.
You'll always have that person that you know you can tell anything to. But then people seem to stop as soon as it comes to mental health. No, I'll keep that to myself. I'll tell them every other problem and they can help. Open up. They can help with this too. Like, a couple of years ago, I was diagnosed with depression, and the thing that stood out for me, especially looking back, is I remember I would get up, get the kids ready for school, do that, and then it was literally counting the minutes down till I could go back to bed at night. It was just get through it. Like, no energy to do anything, didn't really want to leave the house, didn't really want to speak to anyone. And it would get worse. It would get to the point where I would avoid any sort of gatherings, like even with my brother, who's probably my best friend, and I can tell him anything. But I found it really difficult to be with them and be all energetic and things like that. So I spoke to, and I'm kind of saying this because I know your condition is kind of a, like, what, it's one of the more extreme, and there'll be people that will have like the lower end of depression and things, and just the importance of going and speaking to somebody. I spoke to someone through my work, and they asked me they ask you a few questions, don't they? And the guy said to me, he's like, just ask me about life. And so he's like, you're the type of person that puts everybody else first, and then there's nothing left for you. And he's like, do things you enjoy, go and do things and be a little bit selfish. And it sounds totally counterproductive because you've got no energy and you feel like you don't deserve to spend any time doing things you enjoy. But it helps. It's like, take that time. So then you are in a position where you can be the best possible version to be able to help other people if that's what you enjoy doing. And then I visited the local doctor who put me on antidepressants. And they're a tough one. I know they work for a lot of people. For me, I kind of felt a bit like I wasn't really here. The good stuff didn't seem as good. The bad stuff didn't seem as bad. You were just kind of floating along in a bit of a haze.
I understand that completely. I've tried 5 meds now at this point, and I just got told the one that I'm on isn't working, and it's not working, and I felt like it wasn't working. So now I get to try another one. And that's also a part of the process that no one talks about. Like, your doctor can prescribe you a med and think that it worked for everyone else, and it won't work, and it might not work for you. And that's okay. We're all different. We're all completely different. Different medications affect people differently. I took one in the States called Zoloft, which is a very commonly prescribed antidepressant. However, for me, it made me angry. And try to imagine me angry. Like, that's just hard to even think about. But it had some side effects that just weren't good. And I didn't feel like the trade off was right. So let's try another one.
It's not worth it, is it? Yeah.
No. And that is also totally okay. You can say after you're on a med for a little bit that this isn't what I want. And that's okay, because there's a million other things you can try. And
it's not one pill fixes all. And even then, even if it does, it's not necessarily going to make you this outgoing, happy person. It'll just kind of level you out a little bit so you can gather your thoughts. And then if you tie it in with things like talking therapy and stuff like that, and counseling and whatever else other help's available, tie them all together, because the meds will help take the edge off things, so you can put a plan in place and have actions in place that work for you.
Exactly. And I feel like a lot of people don't think of medicine that way. They think it should cure it. There's no cure for depression. I'm going to say that right now. There's no cure for it. If you lean towards that side of mental illness, that sucks, but it's the hand you were dealt. It really sucks. But identifying it and knowing what it is, so it isn't some mysterious thing, is, I feel like, the biggest part of it. Like, you have depression, but you're not depression. Like, that doesn't make up who you are. No. Like, I have bipolar disorder, but that doesn't make me. Like, what makes me is the activities I like to do, how I interact with people, my character. And it's not at all the scary diagnosis of bipolar or depression, because at the end of the day, it's not a scary thing. It helps you figure out how to help yourself. If you have the right diagnosis, then you're not going to have to go through years of being misdiagnosed and trying things that might not help, or trying medications that aren't going to help because of various things. If you have a name to it, you can start tackling it. And you're absolutely still going to have bad days. You might have bad weeks. You might have bad months. You could have bad years. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try to get help. Because
it's not always going to be like that, is it?
No, it's not. Like, I've had depression since I was 14. Turns out it was bipolar, which makes a ton of sense with all the crazy stuff I did as a teenager. It makes a ton of sense. But it's just, it's hard. And I know it's hard. I'm switching to another medication now. And it's so incredibly hard to do that, because you think you're on the right track. You think everything's working, and then it's not. And that's exhausting. And heartbreaking in its own way. I had like a breakdown last night because I was like, oh, wow, I thought I was getting better. And I felt like I wasn't anymore. And that's not at all what's going on.
No.
That's part of the process of things. It's not always going to be perfect. I'll get there one day, but I've had depression since I was 14, but that doesn't mean I've been depressed since I was 14 either. No. I've had really great years. I've had really great months where I've been fine. It just ebbs and flows, and you have to get comfortable with that. And I'm still working on that. I'm not saying I'm there at all, because I'm not. I still have really bad days where I feel like I'm never going to get better again, or I'm never going to have that energy again. And it's even harder having a kid because I take care of him and I put all of my energy into him and I love him to death.
Yeah.
But I need to start leaning on help some more as well, because I can't dedicate all of my energy all of the time. But I have people that can help. I have my husband, who is a great partner, an amazing father. And if I'm having really bad days, he'll take care of all the nitty-gritty parts of having a kid. You know, the diaper changing, the feeding, the bath time, all of the hard parts. And then he'll just let me play with my son.
Yeah.
And
that
makes...
you said before, the kids take up more spoons, don't they?
They do. They definitely do. And I love him to death. And I'm so happy that I have him, because he is such a bright spot in this really weird and dark time I'm in, because he's 9 months old. He is giggling at everything. He is having a blast with figuring out things. He's learning how to crawl. Seeing him become like a person, like someone who's interacting more, is the most amazing thing I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, it can be a real motivation at times as well.
It really
You've got this little smiling face who is just all love, 100% trust, completely innocent, and they're just like, let's just go and have fun. And it's kind of, sometimes you just think, you know, let's just do it. And I've found, going through my periods, that my days were happy when I'd have the kids with me and I'd go and go to the zoo or whatever else. It'd be like, so it'd be the last thing that you really want to do, but you'd finish the day thinking that was exactly what I needed. But at the time, I didn't know I needed it.
Exactly. That is perfectly explained. Like, you're like, oh, the last thing I want to do is go and do things. But then you get to see like your kid being happy and excited, and it's lovely. And that's not to say, I would say that, like, if you're in a really dark place, having a kid isn't going to fix it.
No,
it's not
at all. We're not advocating going out and having those kids.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't have a kid unless you're ready and that you have the support. I was married. You don't have to be married to have a kid, obviously, but I had like a support under me. I had my husband, who is the first person I was really open with about my mental health. Like, straight up, we first started dating. 3 months later, I was like, hey, so I have depression and anxiety, and this isn't going to be fun all the time, and I'm sorry. So if you don't want to be with me, I get it. And he was like, no, I want to be with you.
Full disclosure, it's the best way.
So I was straight up and upfront with him. I was like,
absolutely.
Look, right now I'm in a great place. I'm not going to be in a great place all the time. And that's how I am. And I totally get it if that's not what you want to deal with, because it's exhausting.
Yeah.
But this is who I am. And he was like, no, I want to be with you. Turns out, like 4 years later, he was like, you know, the first time I saw you, I wanted to marry you. And I was like, you're gross. First of all, ew. Second of all, that's really sweet. It's just who I am.
Amazing.
I was like, ew, why would you say that? But finding a partner like that is a 1 in a million. I feel like Like once you find someone you can be, and it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship either. Like it could just be like your best friend in the whole world.
Absolutely.
Be open with them because they care for you just as much as a partner would.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like people forget about that a lot. They're like, oh, I need a partner. No, you don't.
Nah,
if you find somebody, great. But if you don't, lean on your friends. They're there for you. They love you just as much as a partner would.
Yeah. And part of the help that you'll receive in terms of your mental health will be learn to just be happy with you. Like you don't always need somebody there to be happy. And I think that was something that I learned a lot, was kind of how to just be me and not needing other people or and doing it on my own. But to go back to the point about, so we're not saying go and have kids or go and adopt loads of kids because they're going to fix everything. They're not. But the point I was trying to make is that sometimes if you've got that friend that's kind of, do you want to go for a cup of coffee? Sometimes, even if it's the last thing in the world you want to do, just say yes every now and again.
Yeah.
And give it a go. And you might find at the end of that interaction, that conversation, that they share something with you or you end up sharing with them. And at the end of it, you come away thinking, didn't know it at the time, but that was exactly what was needed.
Yeah, because you get into this. It is very tough. You get into this loop of like, I don't want to do anything. Mm-hmm. I don't like, why would I ever do anything? So
hard to get out.
Why would I leave the house? Why would I go have fun? I don't deserve to have fun. I'm a terrible person. Like
or
that
just
is
lacking the energy to leave the house. Like,
yeah, like you just be like, oh, that's so much. Like, no, go get that coffee, even if you're in your PJs.
Yeah.
Like, just go. My husband does that to me all the time. He's like, hey, we should go get something to eat. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. And then I'd be like, no, let's go do something. He pushes me a little bit. He stops, of course, if he knows like it's too far, because he can tell when he's like, nope, okay, just kidding. We won't do that.
No worries. Yeah.
Let me go get coffee and I'll bring it back. But even if you're feeling really down, if you have just a little bit of energy and you feel like it would be worthwhile to go and see your friend, go and do it. Because the last thing that you want to do is to completely isolate yourself.
Yeah.
That makes it worse. You think it's so gonna make it better.
No to everybody.
It is so easy to keep saying no. And if you are having a really bad day, tell the person that you're having a really bad day. Mm-hmm. Be upfront about it. Don't just say no. Tell them why you're saying no. No, I can't be bothered to put pants on today. No, I don't want to do anything. I haven't showered in a week. Do you still want to hang out with me? And more than likely they'll say, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. If you could jump in the shower before we go, but that'd be great.
That'd be great. But if not, I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah, there's perfume. We're good.
We're good. We'll get through it. Just being more open about it makes it feel better. Because if you just say no, that person might think, oh, they just don't want to be friends with me. Or, oh, they don't want to hang out with me, especially if you keep doing it over and over again. And I've lost a lot of friends along the way because I would just say no to everything.
Yeah. And it's not that they're being a bad friend, but there's only so much you can ask somebody.
There's only so much you can do, especially if you feel like they don't want to be friends with you, you know? Mm-hmm. Like if someone keeps telling you no without a reason, I think most people would assume that, oh, they just don't want to be friends with me. And that might not even be the case. So I think it's good for not only if you know someone is struggling with their mental health, if they are saying no a lot, maybe ask them why it's a no. If you're like, hey, let's go get coffee, and they say no a million times, ask them, well, why is it a no?
Yeah. And
then maybe they might open up a little bit more, because there's also that part of you that feels like no one cares about you when you're in the throes of depression or even anxiety. Anxiety is terrible as well because it just eats away at you because you're worried about every little thing. You're like, oh no, the tone of their voice. What did that mean? When it could mean absolutely nothing.
And social media can be a really good tool. I know you've been very open on Twitter about how you feel, and And there's been a few other people that I've seen that have done similar, and I've just dropped them a message privately and just said, look, I know we don't know each other, but if you need to get something off your chest, give me a shout. Like, my messages are always open. Even if you just want to rant in there and don't want to reply, do it. If you want someone to listen and things like that, then do it. Like, if you're in a position where things are at the point where you think you don't have any friends and there's nobody that's close enough to speak to, talk to strangers.
It's
not
amazing.
necessarily in the street, but if you use social media, use it. Like, you'll be surprised at how receptive and how many people there are that, well, I get how you feel, because either I was there last month, or I'm there now, or I was there 2 years ago. This is what helped me. And also just having someone there to listen to. And likewise, anybody that's watching and listening, if any of this resonates with you and you're in a position where you think, I really want to talk to somebody, drop me a message. Like, hit me up. I will sit and listen to anybody as long as possible, because I get it. It's not very nice.
Same. I am in the exact same way. If you ever need anyone to talk to, I am more than willing to talk to you. Literally, you could just rant at me and I'll be there.
Yeah. It's amazing what a good rant can do.
Because it's not always about fixing things, you know? Like, you don't have to talk to someone to try and fix things. And I feel like a lot of people think that, oh, well, they're going to try and fix me. No, I'm not. If you want to just tell me how terrible things have been, please do. Because that might make you feel better.
Get it out.
Getting it out.
Don't carry it around. Like,
it's such a great thing. And a tool that my therapist told me was that when I'm having like a panic attack, or I'm like very anxious, and like when you have anxiety, like things just kind of rush in your head, like different thoughts, different scenarios, all the things. She gave me a tool and she said, write it down. All of everything that's running through your head right now, write it down. Because if you get it out of your head, you might feel a little bit of relief, because it's no longer thinking about it. If you're up at 2 a.m. and you're like, oh shit, I forgot to change the laundry or put it in the dryer or whatever, write it down as like a to-do. Like, remember, you got to do this, because then you won't be.
Yeah, lists make such a difference.
I have so many notepads around me constantly where it's just random scribbles of, I need to get the chicken out of the freezer, or I need to get milk, or I need to do whatever. Because those little thoughts, while someone else might think of them as thoughts and let them go, someone with anxiety or depression might like latch on to those thoughts and just keep replaying them because they don't want to forget it. So getting it somewhere physical, it could be your phone, it could be on a notepad. You could tell Siri, hey Siri, remind me in an hour to do blah blah blah. You get it out of your head. You now don't have to keep worrying about it because you have it written down somewhere. You're not going to forget because it exists somewhere. So don't worry. You got this. I think that's one of the most impactful things. Getting it out one way or another, talking to someone, writing it down. Either way, just get it out. You don't need to keep it inside because it's just going to eat away at you.
Definitely. There's more things to weigh you down, isn't it? I mean, I've got a feeling we could talk about this for hours and hours. But I think we've talked a lot about a different range of things. But if you could give a bit of advice to someone who's watching this, who might be struggling or might be thinking something's not right here, what advice would you give them?
I would say reach out to a friend, to your parents. I know a lot of us are hesitant to talk to our parents about things. And I know there's some people with complicated relationships with their parents, and I'm not talking about that. Like, if you are able to talk to your parents, do it. If you're able to talk to a coworker, do it. If you're able to talk to someone on Twitter, absolutely do it. There's a million resources online as well. In America, there's a texting line that you can text into It's technically a crisis line, but you can text them about, I'm feeling very anxious or I'm very depressed right now. They will text back to you. You don't have to call lines anymore. I feel like that's one thing that stops a lot of people from reaching out, is they're like, oh shit, I have to call a call line. I don't want to talk on the phone. You don't have to anymore. There are many resources out there where you can text or email or chat online, where you don't have to physically talk to anybody. And knowing about those options, reach out to somebody. If something isn't feeling right, something probably isn't right. Don't second guess yourself. You have an instinct for a reason, follow it. If it's telling you, oh no, something's wrong, reach out to somebody, anyone, and start the process. That would be my advice.
That is absolutely perfectly summed up as well. Alcatraz Jaz, thank you so much. I've thoroughly enjoyed that. It's been massively interesting. I'm sure if there is people that are watching this and any of this has resonated with you, we'll put some links for various charities in the US and the UK in the description. So we'll do some of the legwork. And as Jaz was saying, reach out, speak to somebody, speak to us if you feel like you don't have anybody else. We can help. We can point you in the right direction. We can't give you all the answers, but we'll do our best. But as Jaz said, you know yourself better than anybody else does. So if something's not sitting quite right, talk to somebody. Thank you so much for joining me. I've thoroughly enjoyed that.